And Heidi Ho, Twins fans, it is the Twins Off Daily podcast, jumping in for a very special episode, a very quick episode. Recording this on Monday night. I am Gregory T. Masterson. No Sweet Lou, he has a different podcast that he's recording right now. I don't think we can say their name. No free ads on this one. But I'm here with Cody Schoenman. Cody, how are we doing?
Good. Yeah, there are infinite podcasts on every subject ever. But no, it's good. It's late at night. Twins walked off the Red Sox. That is the epitome of rising as one, if I've ever seen it. That was the Deshaun Kersey Jr. game. So yeah, that was fun. That was exciting. I'm looking forward at the rest of this Red Sox series, and I see Pearson Ole is starting his first major league game on Tuesday, and it looks like we got Bailey Ober maybe coming up on Wednesday, back from his rehab assignment. Zebby, I feel like Joe Ryan's in there too. I feel like we're missing somebody. It looks like I don't know. I can't seem to find Chris Paddack in there, Greg.
Man, it is time for everybody's favorite segment. Is Chris Paddack still a Twin? And as of recording July 28th, 2025, Chris Paddack is not a Twin. He was traded to the Detroit Tigers this afternoon. Oh my goodness. When we started this bit, 10 months ago?
Yeah.
Part of the reason we did this bit was because none of us thought that he was going to make it through the offseason with the Twins. And so, I don't know. I think we probably had like 25 episodes where Chris Paddack is still a Twin. But finally today on the Twins Off Daily podcast, Chris Paddack is no longer a Twin. So today, Chris Paddack was traded to the Detroit Tigers. It sounds like the Detroit Tigers retained all of his salary. And it sounds like he was also shipped off with the Dobber. Randy Dobnak is also going to be a Detroit Tiger, or at least in Detroit's system. And they got back a minor leaguer catcher in Enrique Jimenez, who is a 19-year-old switch hitter who is still, I believe, in the Tigers system, or
he's at the
complex or rookie ball. Potentially he might get some run at single A with the Twins as the season wraps up. But very raw prospect. Cody, how are we feeling about Chris Paddack and Randy Dobnak being traded to the Detroit Tigers?
Yeah, so I mean, very surface level analysis. I feel like the inclusion of Dobnak indicates that the team's main priority was shedding payroll. Don't you agree, Greg?
I would say probably. I mean, that, which is to be expected.
Yeah.
It's the trade deadline. Everybody, like if you're selling off like a Chris Paddack type, probably a decent amount of motivation for that is just getting rid of that salary for sure.
Yeah. And so the return was, like you said, Enrique Jimenez. I actually find him to be a pretty intriguing prospect. I will admit this is the first day I have ever heard of him. I am not too familiar with the Tigers Complex League team. I will admit I'm a fraud. But, if you look at his FanGraph page, if you do some stat line scouting, he has a 119 WRC plus in the Complex League, which is fine. I mean, he is very young. And I know on this show and also writing at Twins Daily, I've talked about the Twins' long-term catching situation. It is very bleak. So, I mean, obviously in the majors, you have Ryan Jeffers, you have Christian Vasquez, who also now might be moved. And Ryan Jeffers might get moved too. We don't really know what's going to happen. But right now, those are the two main guys. And then in the minors, I mean, you got Noah Cardinez in AAA. Mickey Gasper is up right now with the Twins, but I don't think he's like a long-term catching option. Yeah. It's kind of interesting what they're doing with him right now, but I don't think you can enter a season confident with Gasper as your backup catcher. And then you also have players like Kadeem Dia in the low minors. So having Jimenez join the mix is interesting, maybe as like a long-term catching option. We're talking about like 2028 with him, 2029. I mean, this is very, very long term, but hopefully he can blossom in the system. But, he really is like a lottery ticket, and that's kind of what you're going to get for a trade package around, a fifth starter like Paddack and a AAA starting depth, maybe reliever depth in Randy Dobnak. I'm pretty confident he'll be in Toledo with Detroit. So, yeah, I mean, they got a lottery ticket. He's ranked around the 14 to 18 range in Detroit system, and they have a pretty decent system. With like Kevin McConaughey and Max Clark at the top. Obviously, Jimenez is not that type of prospect, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't hate the trade. There's some speculation that they may have been able to get like a better package if they hadn't included Dobnak, but I don't really believe that. I don't know. I mean, it's a bit early. I mean, we're a couple of days out from the deadline. Maybe they could have gotten a better package, but we don't know. I mean, this is a complete lottery ticket. So overall, I'm content with it. I'm content with moving Paddack. I think that was a smart move overall.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that I think that the high mark that I've seen on him is like number 12 on Keith Law's preseason Tigers farm system rankings. So I'm guessing, the Tigers kind of have a very top-heavy system. I would assume that he would slot somewhere in like the late teens, early to maybe mid 20s. I don't know, maybe somewhere between like 17 and 25 for the Twins.
If you're looking at future catching prospects, I think Kadeem Dia ranks higher than he is.
For sure. But he is an interesting prospect where there are, like, some people do think that he can stick at catcher. It sounds like he is also getting play at first base, which means that he's got enough of a bat, or people hope on that bat enough that maybe they think that he can kind of cut it at first base. I think that this is kind of the return that you are going to get for Chris Paddack. And I would say it's kind of on the higher end of what I was expecting from Chris Paddack. I think that in terms of the 1 year kind of expiring contracts that they're trying to offload right now, Paddack is probably the fourth most valuable of them, behind Bader, Castro, and Danny Coulombe. And my kind of thought was, if they move all four of them, if they can get, I don't know, 6 prospects who are somewhere between like 15 and 25, I think that that's a decent outcome for moving for expiring contracts. So I'm honestly kind of pleased with it. There's definitely reason to be excited about Jimenez, but there's no reason to like feel like he's going to be in the majors anytime soon. It's honestly just nice. I mean, there were some pundits commentators who straight up just did not believe that Chris Paddack was going to be traded at all, that anybody would get a return. But it sounds like there were several teams bidding on him, which was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shows, like, I don't know if I want to say desperation, but, the fact that playoff contending teams just need starting pitching to get through the final haul. I mean, Detroit, Reese Olson just went down for the season. Forgot what the injury was, but he's out for the rest of the year. He was a really good starting pitcher for them. So, they have Tariq Skubal, Jack Flaherty. They're not looking at Paddack as a playoff starter. I'm sure that he'll transition into the bullpen like he did in 2023 with the Twins. He was actually very useful in that role, so there might be some value for Detroit there. But yeah, I mean, also just doing some reading on Jimenez, he was Detroit's most expensive international signing in 2023. He signed for $1.25 million. So I mean, it's kind of the indication is that he was a pretty valuable player on the international, in the international class. So, I mean, it's kind of exciting, right? I mean, there's reason to be like a little bit excited about Jimenez, don't you think?
Yeah. And I mean, this kind of a small thing, but I think that it is notable that this trade happened a few days before the trade deadline. If there's one thing that we know about this current Twins front office, is they like to slow play things a little bit. And obviously there could be other factors at play. I mean, Chris Paddack was scheduled to start tomorrow. It's possible that, a team said, okay, this is going to be our offer, but you have to accept it now so that he doesn't start for you tomorrow and potentially like hurt himself. But yeah, I think that it's a little bit notable that they jumped out a couple days ahead of the deadline to pull off this trade. I would assume that would mean that this is probably better or in line with what they kind of had hoped a Chris Paddack trade would net them.
Yeah. So earlier in the show, when I was doing the bit to lead into the Chris Paddack bit, I mentioned that Pearson Ole is making his major league
which
debut.
is super exciting.
Yeah, I was gonna. So what is your? He's actually had a pretty solid year this year between AA and AAA. I think if you want to use the term broke out, he kind of broke out in the system in 2023. He was very, very good that year. What do you think about Pearson Ole? Do you think he could develop into like an actual rotation piece, or you think he's merely just kind of taking Paddack's spot for like this one turn in the rotation?
Yeah, from what I've heard, it sounds like it's going to be sort of a Travis Adams game where he's not going. He is starting, but I don't think that they have any hopes that he's going to go like 5 or anything like that. In terms of like kind of his long-term outlook, I think he might have more reliever upside than starter upside. From what I've seen, I don't think that anybody's expecting Pearson Ole to be a fixture in the rotation. If it happens, there definitely is a pathway towards that. I'm not the biggest Pearson Ole expert, but what I've heard from smarter people is that there is a chance that he is a pretty good reliever, a lesser chance that he is a rotation piece. But I mean, he's a 14th round draft pick in 2021. The fact that he's earned it. That's very exciting, and that's probably a notch in the favor of the Twins' development.
Yeah, it's giving Charlie Barnes vibes. Yeah, that's kind of who I instantly thought of.
Giving Griffin Jacks vibes, if you will, in 2021.
Yeah. I mean, and then like long term outlook. I mean, Paddack's gone. He was going to be gone either way. You go into next season, assuming Joe Ryan won't get moved, which is kind of, the overall sense right now. So, entering the offseason with Ryan, Ober, Lopez, Zebby, who looked great in his last start. I mean, there's a reason to be optimistic about the rotation next year. If we're talking about controllable assets, because I do agree that Bader and Castro and Coulomb will also get moved. I kind of have convinced myself that I think Griffin Jacks is going to get moved at the deadline. Maybe Duran. Do you have an overall inkling towards those two guys?
I feel like one of them is going to go.
Yeah, me too.
That's sort of the hinting that people have made, and I just think that it makes sense organizationally to, I don't know. I think that they can stomach or they can take the loss of a very, very good reliever better than most teams can. And I just think that, especially like, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of this, but like, for example, with Emmanuel Clase, I don't know if he was going to get traded. Now he's for sure not getting traded. I mean, there's reason to believe that like Griffin Jacks or Yohan Duran could be like the belle of the ball of this trade deadline in terms of right-handed relievers. So I mean, I would listen with open ears for anybody wanting to make a run at those guys.
Yeah, I agree. Because say like you trade Jacks, then Stewart and Varland can just slide into that 8th, 7th inning role, which they already occupy at times. And then if you trade Duran, then you could, transition Jacks or Varland or Stewart into closing opportunities. You could just kind of do like closer by committee. So the team is definitely set up to shoulder that loss, even with Coulomb expected to leave too. I mean, the Twins have a pretty significant number of high leverage relievers, so they are in a very good spot to lose one or two of those pitchers. Sorry,
you're good. And who knows? Maybe like Pearson Ole could be an option before too long, or I mean Connor Prelip or Marco Raya. They do have a lot of guys who are in the high minors right now who could feasibly be rotate or bullpen pieces if they don't work out as starters or for one reason or another. So
we could maybe see Cole Sands go back to last year's form, get more high leverage opportunities.
I think that they have enough interesting pieces that, like, obviously it's always going to hurt if you trade one of your two best relievers, but the Twins, I think, are in a position where that is such a position of strength that, I mean, even if it does hurt, if they're able to pull something off and bring in more offense in the very near future, even if it's not somebody for this year, I mean, that's kind of the smart thing to do. as long as they're getting a fair deal. But yeah, I think that's good enough on prospect talk. Before we hang this up, it's just going to be a very quick episode. Your thoughts on the Chris Paddack timeline, or the Chris Paddack experience, Chris Paddack's tenure in Minnesota, however you want to say it.
Yeah, so remember when he was acquired on that day before opening day trade that sent Taylor Rogers and Brent Rooker to San Diego, and the Twins got back Paddack and Emilio Pagan. I was actually pretty excited about the trade because I liked Paddack a lot. Like his rookie year with San Diego, he was incredible. I forgot his numbers and stuff, but I remember like he was really towards the top in rookie of the year voting. People kind of thought he was like the next up, or one of the next up and coming arms. And then he kind of, his play diminished his second season. But then in his first year at Minnesota, like his first couple starts are actually like pretty impressive. I think he generated wasn't there like kind of like a meme where he was worth 0.9 F4 in like 4 starts, and he was worth more than everybody else in the rotation besides like Sonny Gray for a long time.
Yeah,
or something
it
like
was
that.
like halfway through the year, their second most valuable pitcher by F4 was just 22 innings of Chris Paddack. Like it was very promising.
Yeah, and I remained optimistic about him, while he was recovering from a second Tommy John. And then he came back during the end of the 2023 season as a reliever exclusively, and he looked good. Like his stuff looked good. I know he got knocked around a little bit. I think it was in a game against Oakland, then Oakland. But then he was really impressive in the playoff series against Houston at home. I remember specifically he mowed through Houston's lineup. So then that kind of
them in that game. Like if there's if there is a Chris Paddack moment, it was what he put in 2 innings of work, kept Minnesota, kept it a 1-run game for an elimination game in the ALDS. Like that was like, if I have one lasting like memory of Chris Paddack, it's probably that moment.
Yeah, because he was absolutely dominant in that in those 2 innings. And then, last season he entered the year as a starting pitcher. He kind of was expected, I feel, to take on like too significant of like a load or responsibility, given the fact he was, basically still coming off of Tommy John surgery and giving Sonny Gray's departure. I feel like people kind of place unfair expectations on him. And even if the expectations were more moderate, he still really didn't live up to them. He was mostly ineffective. He had around like a 5 ERA, correct, in 2024.
Yeah, 4.99 in 2024 and a 4.95 in 2025.
And then he didn't pitch after the All-Star break, right? His last start
Yes.
And then this year, I feel like the expectations dampened. They were pretty low. I feel like people realistically thought of him as a 4th starter. People thought he was going to get traded in the offseason, and it was a surprise or a shock even that he wasn't moved this offseason, given his $7.5 million price tag and the fact that the team was in financial constraints. But, nevertheless, he was still...
Honestly, though, it was... Like looking back, it might have been the right choice.
Yeah, it was,
because everybody was saying like, well, just turn that position over to Festa or Matthews. Then you have the other one sitting at AAA, and then you have Andrew Morris potentially. And now we're sitting here in July, and Chris Paddack, if he was not around, I don't Pearson Olm might have been up at the beginning of the month. So they ended up probably kind of making the right decision, keeping him around, if for nothing else than starting depth.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it was the right choice. I mean, again, like you can never have too much starting pitching, whether it's the Dodgers having like 11 solid starters, on the 40-man, or, like the Twins having 8 solid options. You can never have too much. And then this year, I feel like he was kind of enigma, if you want to use that word, or a anomaly. Not an anomaly. I actually don't know what the word enigma is. I never use it. But
English teacher.
Yeah. Either way, I was
an enigma is something mysterious, puzzling, or inexplicable. Honestly, the kind of thought that I have on like Chris Paddack's tenure with the Twins is like, and his whole career overall has just been like chasing the dragon, where it's,
Yeah.
there is a very, very good starter in there, and everybody can see that. There's varying levels of belief that he is a very good starter or has a very good starter in him, but he shows flashes of that where it's not unreasonable to look at him and say, oh man, like if we can just figure it out with him, this is a nice mid-rotation starter that borders on a frontline starter. I mean, that's what people thought that he was in 2019, but it's been chasing the dragon. It's been chasing that high that you get, once every couple weeks with Chris Paddack, where it's like, oh man, this dude is a dude. And in the interim, he might have like the worst start that you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
And so even though, he has a very middle of the road ERA, even or probably slightly lower than league or higher than league average, you still it didn't really feel like he was throwing with a 5 ERA, because it was either he was throwing like a guy with a 2 ERA or a 7 ERA.
No, he was the pitcher where you just didn't know what you were going to get start from start. It was complete. It was a complete crapshoot. Like, he can go from struggling mightily against the White Sox or Colorado. I mean, that was in Colorado, so kind of give him a mulligan for that. To completely like dominating Tampa Bay or doing really well against the Dodgers. Like, you just didn't know. You're just like, okay, is he going to blow up against Miami today, or is he going to absolutely like dominate the Tigers? You didn't know. So I think Detroit, it'll be much the same. Maybe Detroit, I mean, they have a really good pitching, program there. Chris Fetter is a really good pitching coach. He's really been able to tap into and unlock guys like I mentioned earlier, Reese Olson, Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty. So, I mean, we could see a really good Chris Paddack in Detroit, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I wanted to touch on is just like Chris Paddack has been like a fixture in the minds of Twins fans so disproportionately against. I mean, so his career for the Twins, he started he pitched 45 games total over 4 years. He had a 4.88 ERA. He was, just a pedestrian starter, but he was unfortunately attached to a trade that everybody I think that it was a pretty mixed response at the time. The Twins sent out Taylor Rogers, a fan favorite, with, I believe, 1 year of team control left, and Brent Rooker, who they were going to probably DFA had they not traded him. They were trying to decide between him and Kyle Garlick as the platoon corner outfielder on that 2022 team. And they chose Kyle Garlick. They sent off Brent Rooker. They sent off Taylor Rogers, and also paid all of Taylor Rogers' salary that season, I believe, which was 6.5. Can you just time out? Can you imagine a time when the Twins were eating $6.5 million of a good player's salary to trade him for assets that they think that they can work with? Came back with Chris Paddack and Emilio Pagan. Emilio Pagan was he was a decent reliever who all of his failures came at the worst possible times.
Yeah.
And then Chris Paddack goes out and he gets injured 5 starts into his career. It comes out that, everybody kind of knew his elbow was hanging by a thread to begin with. He doesn't really pitch in 2023. You've already told the story. But it's a story that, we care more about Chris Paddack's career than any equivalent pitcher, because it was attached to this trade that Twins fans were mixed on to begin with. And after watching Emilio Pagan, after watching Chris Paddack, and then seeing what Brent Rooker became, 2 teams later with the A's, everybody has just incredibly strong opinions on it, either that it was the worst trade in Twins history, or it was actually very good. If you think it's a bad trade, you're a moron. So I think that's the last thing that I wanted to say about Chris Paddack's Minnesota Twins tenure. It was just a little bit more kind of in the spotlight than a normal pitcher of his caliber probably would have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is something about Paddack where people are drawn to his aesthetics You know, it's something adjacent to Harrison Bader too, and I think there's a deeper conversation to be had there that we're not going to have at 12:01 a.m. On a Tuesday. But you know, he looks like a ball player. Like, you know, people like him. He has the long hair and the mustache. He's got the so yeah. I think people were drawn to him. He was kind of like mystifying in a way. You know, yeah. But there's a whole, you know. I'm insinuating what I think, but I'm not going to say it. But either way, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, he wasn't bad. He never turned into a frontline talent. I don't really think that was the expectation. Maybe internally it was with the Twins. I mean, I know Derek Falvey liked him a lot. He was very, very like drawn to him, and he prioritized him. I remember before that, there was a deal that was going to send Paddack to the Mets.
Yep.
But then the Mets declined it in a similar vein as Correa because they had concerns over his injuries. I think they were going to send Dominic Smith back to San Diego. Does that ring a bell?
That I don't know what the return was, but yeah, they did have something lined up with the Mets. And like I said, like everybody knew if you looked at his medical record that his elbow was hanging on by a thread, and the Twins tried to kind of roll the dice on it. And it did not succeed. It's just everything about this Chris Paddack tenure is hilarious. I mean, it even rhymes with the Correa situation where the Mets turned down two different players before sending them tail between their legs to the Twins. Yeah.
And that was Brody Van Wagenen and David Stearns. There's no like, or no, that was Billy Epler. There's no through line. It's just randomness. Just randomness. But people caring about Randy Dobnak in like, I've maybe people are making a fuss about that. You're more on Twitter than I am. I don't really care at all about Dobnak being sent to Detroit. Do you really have any feelings about that? I mean,
Dobnak is kind of in the same boat where the mystique and the storytelling around him outweighs you know, his actual presence. Shout out Randy Dobnak. I mean, he is one of the cooler stories in Twins history in terms of you know, going from independent ball to starting a playoff game, which you know is a whole bag of worms that we don't need to revisit. I know that there are a lot of people who are kind of cut up or torn up about it. They, you know, people loved Randy Dobnak and wish him well and all that. For sure. But beyond that, I don't know. It was probably time for him to go. Or if they could find a taker, they were absolutely going to let that happen.
I wonder if he'll stay in affiliated ball after past this year. I wonder what his career trajectory looks like.
I don't know. I mean, he's made a chunk of money. I don't think that his family's ever going to be hurting for money. I'm curious as to what Randy Dobnak's career is after this. I thought that there was a chance that he was just going to be a St. Paul Saint until he was like 45. You know, go into the Saints Hall of Fame, just continue to pitch forever for them. But yeah, shout out Randy Dobnak, one of the cooler stories in Twins history. If you are upset about the contract that Randy Dobnak signed, where he got $9 million guaranteed over 5 years, I don't think that you understand baseball payrolls or anything like that. It's a non-story.
It's a very unserious complaint.
And I'm not really torn up about the Twins sending him off for salary relief either. That's a non-story. Who knows? Maybe they're going to take this money that they saved with Randy Dobnak and acquire a player. But I genuinely don't care.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I saw like people are going to get upset over a fan favorite, and I really don't care either. I just don't.
Shout out Randy Dobnak. Shout out Rick Dobnak, one of the greatest name searchers on Twitter. If you ever tweet Randy Dobnak, Rick Dobnak will find it. He loves his name searching. Cody, anything else you got?
No, I'm excited about the deadline. I think we're going to see a lot of moves by the Twins. That's kind of my prediction.
Yeah, I think that there will be. I don't know if we'll get quite to half a dozen moves, but I think that there will probably be 5 total moves. If you include Chris Paddack, that's where I would put my money. So yeah, just wanted to announce for those of you who are listening, Twins Off Daily Crew, we are making arrangements to actually have a live stream leading up to the deadline. We don't have a time yet, probably somewhere in like the 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock time frame, where we will discuss trades that are going on, trades that have already happened. We'll definitely probably touch on Chris Paddack again with our old friend Lou Hennessy this time. And then we'll also be bringing on some various guests, some former guests of this show, some fan favorites. I don't want to name any names in case anybody gets cold feet and backs out, but it's going to be fun. Come hang out with us on YouTube or Facebook as we stream right up to the deadline and react to whatever the Twins are doing through that time.
Yeah, we got Trevor Plouffe coming on. We got Kramer coming on. Who else?
Jeff Fry will be there.
Jeff Fry will be there. Darren Mastrioni will be there.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up. I think we went twice as long as we intended to, but I was really hoping that this was going to bring down the old Gregg hosting average time, but we are bordering on a short episode. So for Cody, I'm old Gregg. Thank you guys for jumping in and listening to our reaction to the Harrison Bader trade. We look forward to breaking down several more trades on Thursday live in front of a studio audience.
Yep.
But until then, stay old.